A struggling mechanic fixed bicycles for free behind the church until Air Force One landed in town. The sound of rusted spokes clattered through the early morning mist as 12-year-old Eli rolled his broken bicycle toward the back of St. John's Church. The tires squeaked pitifully, and the chain dangled like a loose thread on a worn-out sweater. Eli's eyes darted nervously. He hadn't told his mother where he was going. She would have insisted they couldn't afford help, even if someone offered it free. But behind the church, crouched under a faded red tarp, was a man known only to some as Pop. His name was Henry Tucker, once a respected auto mechanic, now a grizzled figure who worked out of a makeshift shed built from old lumber and donated parts. Most folks in the town of Maple Ridge passed him by without a glance. Some thought he was homeless, others assumed he'd gone mad after losing his shop 2 years ago in a fire. But to a small group of children, those with bent handlebars, flat tires, and broken brakes, Pop was a quiet kind of hero. When Eli timidly pushed his bike into the yard that morning, Pop didn't ask questions. He simply looked up, nodded once, and said, "Park it by the stump. Let me take a look." There was something gentle in his gravelly voice, like a tired song you can't forget. He didn't scold Eli for the rusted bolts or make him feel bad about the worn-out tires. He just worked, his fingers blackened with grease, eyes focused, and movements deliberate. Within an hour, the bicycle looked brand new. "Thank you, sir," Eli said, his eyes wide. Pop wiped his hands on a rag. "Just ride safe. Tell your mama it's fixed." Eli paused, puzzled. "But, what do I owe you?" Pop smiled, a slow, warm curl that lived behind his scruffy beard. "You owe me nothing, son. Just pass it on one day." That was how Pop lived. Quietly. Kindly. Beneath the radar. Word of his free bike repairs trickled through the town like spring water through dry earth. Children came from trailer parks, housing projects, and dusty back roads. They brought bikes held together with duct tape and prayers. Pop fixed them all, never charging a dime. Some gave him sandwiches or lemonade. Others just sat with him while he worked, chatting about school or dreams. To them, Pop wasn't just a mechanic. He was hope with a wrench. What most didn't know, however, was how close Pop was to losing everything. Since the fire took his shop, and his wife passed the same month, he'd been barely surviving on veteran benefits and odd jobs. He lived in a tiny room above the church's storage shed, using the rest of his time to fix bicycles and volunteer at the soup kitchen. Pride kept him from asking for help, and heart kept him giving all he had left. Then one quiet Wednesday morning, everything changed. It started with a rumble in the sky. At first, no one paid attention. Maple Ridge was quiet, forgotten. Nothing exciting ever happened here. But that rumble grew louder, closer, unmistakable. Then came the sirens, the black SUVs, the frantic energy of local police clearing traffic. Air Force One was circling, its massive frame glinting against the clouds before it descended toward the old municipal airport just 15 miles outside town. People poured into the streets. News vans arrived. Rumors flew. The President of the United States was coming, to Maple Ridge. No one could believe it. Not until the town hall released a statement, the President was stopping by to visit a childhood friend recovering from surgery in a nearby veteran's home. The visit would be brief. Private. Just a drop-in. But for a town like Maple Ridge, it was monumental. Pop didn't say much about it when the kids buzzed around his repair yard with stories and guesses. "You think the President's bringing a bike?" he chuckled softly, tightening a bolt on a pink tricycle. Then, the unexpected happened. 3 days after the landing, Pop heard footsteps approaching his tarp-covered workbench. He looked up to see a sharply dressed man in a navy suit flanked by 2 Secret Service agents. "Henry Tucker?" the man asked, extending a hand. Pop stood, suspicious. "Yeah, who's asking?" "I'm Daniel Keene." I work with the Office of Community Affairs for the White House. The president heard about you. Pop blinked. The president? Daniel smiled. Yes. We received several letters about you. From kids, mostly. One of them, Eli Bowers, sent a handwritten note. Said you fixed his bike for free and called you the kindest man in town. Pop looked stunned. It was just a bike. Well, Daniel said, it wasn't just a bike to him. And it wasn't just one. It was dozens, maybe hundreds. Kids wrote about how they got to school, rode to see their friends, even raced in town events, all because of you. You didn't ask for recognition. You just gave. Pop was speechless. Daniel continued. Tomorrow, the president would like to meet you. In fact, he's inviting you to a private ceremony at the town center. He's giving a short speech about unsung heroes, people who serve without seeking praise. Pop chuckled nervously. I'm no hero. Just a man with some tools and time. Daniel's expression softened. That's exactly what makes you one. The next day felt like a dream. The entire town gathered near the courthouse square. Pop stood in borrowed slacks and a clean shirt, still smelling faintly of motor oil. He looked out at the crowd, at Eli, grinning with pride, and the dozens of kids whose lives he'd touched. Then the motorcade arrived. The president stepped out, waving, smiling, completely at ease. After the formalities, he took the stage and began his speech. In every town across this nation, the president said, there are people who carry the weight of others without ever asking for thanks. They fix what is broken. They lift what is heavy. They shine light where things seem dark. He looked directly at Pop. Today, I want to recognize one of them. He beckoned Pop forward. The crowd erupted in cheers. Pop hesitated, heart pounding, but then walked slowly up the steps, feeling as if his legs might give out beneath him. The president extended his hand. Henry Tucker, thank you for reminding us what service truly means. Pop's eyes welled. I'm just doing what I can. That's more than enough, the president replied. You've built more than bikes. You've built hope. He handed Pop a small medal, a presidential commendation for community service. After the ceremony, reporters asked Pop how it felt to be honored by the president. I didn't fix bikes for medals, he said softly. I fixed them because kids needed to ride. And because, when you've lost everything, giving something back is the only thing that puts you back together. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low behind St. John's, Pop returned to his little shed behind the church. Waiting there were 5 kids, all holding broken bikes. None of them asked about the medal. None of them mentioned the president. They just smiled, like they always did. Pop grinned. All right, he said, rolling up his sleeves. Let's get to work. Epilogue. In the months that followed, donations poured into the town. A new workshop was built behind the church, officially named Henry's Haven. Volunteers joined Pop, young mechanics, high schoolers, even veterans wanting to give back. The project grew beyond bicycles. They started repairing wheelchairs, building school supplies, teaching kids basic mechanics. Pop never changed. He still wore the same ball cap and smelled of engine oil. He still refused payment. But now, the world knew what Maple Ridge had always known, that even the quietest acts of kindness can echo louder than any speech, any parade, even the roar of Air Force One. Sometimes, the most powerful change begins not in the Oval Office, but behind a small church, with a wrench in hand and a heart wide open.